Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome. The Doctor is in, and we are back with more of Umineko When They Cry, or Umineko no Naku Koro ni, depending on which translation you prefer of that title. I mean, I suppose I prefer Umineko When They Cry to When the Seagulls Cry, even though When the Seagulls Cry is the literal translation, but anyway. Yes, we are back, and I need to do some hydration real quick. Why is it always on this stream? I've recently hydrated that I need to hydrate more. But yes, we are we're picking up where we left off in episode 3. I don't recall if I read the little introduction to this episode in the previous stream, so I'm going to read it again just for the heck of it. Good morning. This is a surprise that even now you do not surrender. The Golden Witch has exceedingly high expectations of you. Have you perhaps also come to realize the structure of this world? There can be no victory without knowing the rules. Please enjoy a hearty game with the witch. The difficulty level is fair. Fair for you, and fair for the witch. Oh, one more place I need to post my info. There we go. All right. Oh, and hey, Kage, thank you for joining. How are you doing? I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Oh, that's right. I need to make sure that the sound alerts are working. Creepy. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Sound alerts are overrated when they work. So if you're telling me that people would actually buy more sound alerts if they weren't working, that makes no sense. Okay, so we left off about 2 chapters in, so we're starting on which part here? And this, what's the chapter title? The Witch's Written Challenge. Okay. Without even be... Yes, you trick them into thinking it won't work unless they play them twice. Oh my goodness. I'll need a little bit more hydration than I thought. Okay. I think we should be okay now. Without even being allowed to wait for dessert, we were chased out of the room. Okay, this is Battler's perspective. Okay. Alright, well, thank you for the lurk, Kage, and also, if you would like to join my Discord, follow me on YouTube, or follow me on Twitter, the links are in the chat. I could always use more apprentices in my alchemitorium on Discord. Okay, cool. Alright, well, hope you enjoy it. I've been meaning to try and drum up some, more activity there. I just been trying to do so was a bit difficult. Yeah, thank you. I see you there now. All right. I heard that in the end, our parents were unable to get grandfather to respond. Well, I hate to say it, but I feel like giving grandfather a high five right now. And thank you for the alert, Kage. Appreciate it. He's probably pretty satisfied with how his strange letter had given his children a good shock, since they'd all been so infatuated with the inheritance problem while grandfather was still alive. I also felt like our despicable parents had gotten what they deserved in all this confusion. But I couldn't really say that I was feeling great. I felt all sulky. Apparently grandfather hadn't seemed concerned with the whole thing, but he also hadn't denied anything about the letter either. In talking about the witch's letter, grandfather's name kept popping up. If grandfather knew that someone was stealing his name, then considering his character, he'd probably be mad with rage. Even though grandfather now knew the contents of that letter, he coldly ignored it. So did that count as a silent yes? Thank you for the lyric, Mickey Taco. Appreciate you being here. Hope your day is going well. Aunt Ava and Dad were trying to interpret the letter in their favor, their greed clearly visible. It wouldn't have mattered so much if that was all, but the adults had now started focusing on Maria, who'd received the letter. They kept pounding her with questions about who had given it to her. Maria repeated over and over again that she'd gotten it from Beatrice, but there was no way such a mysterious person could have sneaked onto the island. After all, this island's small, and there's no one living on it outside the Ushiromiya family household. Define small for us, Battler. Maria kept repeating that she'd gotten it from Beatrice no matter how many times she was asked. The adults seemed to think she was trying to trick them, so they didn't hold back and questioned her until she broke out in tears. When Maria was released, she sobbed, all worn out from crying. After our parents ordered us to go to the guest house and take Maria with us, they shut themselves up in the dining hall and started getting louder and louder as they discussed the inheritance. It seemed that because of that strange letter, Uncle Krause's chances of becoming the next head might have been reduced to a blank slate, and in exchange for accepting him, my dad and the rest were trying to swindle Uncle Krause out of a lot of money, or something like that. Disgusted as we were, Jessica and I were happy to move over to the guest house. We didn't want to be under the same roof as those filthy adults, so their heads so filled with thoughts about money. George Aniki pleaded on our parents' behalf, saying that he wanted us to understand them. I understood his reasoning. No matter how filthy this talk of money was, it wouldn't go away if you just closed your eyes to it. But even so, how could they sink so low as to overtly fight over the money of the dead? Maria had cried herself dry and was hiding in her bed. She hadn't even twitched for a while, so she was probably sleeping. Who in the world gave that letter to Maria-chan? George Nissan, you can't ask her that anymore. Isn't it fine to say that Maria got it from Beatrice and leave it at that? After all, we don't want to make her cry any more than this. Even though we said that, we couldn't clear away a gloomy feeling. There are only 18 people on this island now. The thought that somewhere in the rain a 19th person gave Maria-chan that letter and is now hiding somewhere doesn't seem realistic at all. Most likely, somebody got Shannon or someone to put on the dress from that portrait and cleverly got Maria to go along with her story. Though, in Maria's case, just seeing the dress would probably convince her that it really was Beatrice. Maybe it doesn't really matter who handed her the letter. The important thing is who sent it. The point is that Grandfather wanted to cause an uproar by assuming the name of the witch. Seriously, that old geezer's good at riling people up. The most likely answer is that our occult-loving grandfather was playing around, handing the letter over to Maria, who shares the same hobby as he does, in such a dramatic way. Though he failed to give any thought for what Maria would have to go through, making it a pretty shitty thing to do. Seriously, messing around with Maria's pure heart. Doesn't matter who handed the letter over. Maria says she got it from Beatrice, so let's treat it that way. I agree. Let's do that. To Maria-chan, Beatrice is kind of what Santa Claus is to most kids. Whether we're dealing with some non-existent 19th person or Santa Claus, as long as we all acknowledge them, they at least exist inside Maria. I see. Guess it can be important to lie to a child to protect their dreams. What's up, Jessica? You still angry? Jessica had her hand on her chin, as though there was something that she just couldn't understand. When I called out to her, she came to her senses. Sorry. Well, actually, I was wondering if Maria might have actually met Beatrice. What do you mean by that? You saying that there's a 19th person on this island? If you truly take Maria-chan's words to heart, then you would arrive at that answer. No, that's not what I meant. I mean, I'm talking about the story that someone we don't know has been living on this island since long ago. Living, you say? Where? In the forest. The adults were gathered in the dining hall, spending a very long time continuing the discussion that had been started by Beatrice's letter. Kraus strongly claimed that the letter was a simple prank, but he couldn't overturn the claim that Kinzo's failure to deny the letter was answer enough. Judging by Kinzo's character, if he knew that a letter had been written in his name, he would be mad with rage. Since all of the siblings knew that, Kraus had no choice but to withdraw his claim. Without even having to summarize it, the contents of the letter were simple. The person who could solve the witch's epitaph would receive the headship and assets. This did a lot of damage to Kraus, who had been sure that he would receive the headship, and was better news than the rest of them who had already given up could have hoped for. However, there were some points that worried them. The person who solved the epitaph was not limited to a member of the Ushiromiya family. Taken literally, anyone, no matter how doubtful their origin, might receive the headship. Excuse me. And furthermore, this meant that there was a chance that all of the Ushiromiya family's assets would be stolen by some unknown person. In that sense, it was definitely not a situation where even the other siblings could afford to lower their guard. Had this letter come from an assassin sent by Kinzo calling themselves Beatrice? Or was this the scheme of some unknown person trying to steal the Ushiromiya family's wealth? They still didn't know the truth, but they could say one thing for certain. Maria had received this problematic letter today on this island. In other words, someone planning something to do with that letter was on this island today. Had it been set up by Kinzo, one of the 4 siblings? Or maybe some unknown person? No matter how much they suspected each other, they couldn't reach a conclusion. I had to adjust my mic here. Hold up. After getting tired of bickering with each other, they finally reached the extremely obvious conclusion that doubting each other was just a waste of time. We've made no progress. We've just been spinning our wheels. That's right, and the mere fact that you've realized it means we won't have to waste any more time. It's not certain that Father sent the letter. My husband is merely exasperated by your inability to hold a conversation. Who's unable to hold a conversation? You keep yelling at me every time I say something. Do you truly think that such shameful behavior is fitting for a member of the Ushiromiya family? Would you give it a rest, Ava? You too, Natsuhi-san. That topic's finished for now. Shall we all cool our heads off for now? Let's have some cool drinks brought over. That sounds good. It would probably be wiser if we cooled our heads. Don't you want to take a short break too, dear? Aneki looks like she's in a bad mood, so I'll pass on that break. But I agree about the cool drinks. Rosa, have someone bring some water. A whole pitcher. Yes, understood. Rosa headed over to the extension telephone in the corner of the room and called the servant room. She then passed on what Rudolph had told her to the person on the other end. The vicious bickering up until now vanished as though it had been a lie. That silence continued until Goda finished setting the table and retreated from the room. Is there anything else that you require? No. Please leave us. Yes. Then if you will excuse me. If you need anything, call me at any time. After listening to the sound of Goda's footsteps disappear off into the distance, everyone took a deep breath at the same time to break the tension. It sure is raining hard. I wonder if this 19th person is taking shelter in the rose garden arbor about now. I wonder. They might be able to escape the rain there, but it would be quite cold. A mysterious 19th person as a visitor. Sounds pretty interesting, just like a mystery novel. Normally in that kind of story, it's a safe bet that the person doesn't exist. That one of us 18 would be faking it. I suspect Genji and the others. Just as I thought, it would have been better if we dismissed all the servants of the One-Winged Eagle, no matter what excuses we had to make. Come now, don't say that. We must be grateful for their long years of service. Of course, we can't let our guard down. I'm sure you agree too, Nii-san, that whether or not Father was behind this, the person who handed Maria the letter was a servant. Indeed. In any event, we were all being friendly in our big happy circle until dinner, weren't we? All of the siblings have alibis. Only a servant could have handed Maria that letter. But all of the servants said they were too busy with the bed making to have any spare time during which they could go to Maria-chan in the rose garden. Hey, what are you trying to say then? You aren't saying that the witch of the forest, Beatrice-sama, came over and actually handed Maria that letter, are you? Rosa, you used to believe in that so much it really frightened you, right? Don't tell me you still believe at this age. In the witch of the forest? If she did exist, I'd love for her to appear, but no matter how much I wish she didn't appear before me even once. She didn't save me from my crisis. Of course not. I just thought that since all 18 of us said we didn't do it, there might really be a 19th person.
That can't be. In the first place, we were the only ones who came in on that boat. We didn't see any mysterious stranger riding with us. You don't think they could have swam across this rough sea, right? I can't really imagine it.
Logically, that's true. It is difficult to imagine that there's a single hidden and uninvited guest on this isolated island. However, it looks like some of us still can't abandon the possibility completely, right?
Hideyoshi had laughed it off, saying there couldn't be a 19th person, but Kyrie had sensitively picked up on the delicate atmosphere among the four siblings. In a normal situation, there shouldn't have been any uninvited guests on this small, isolated island. How would they have come here? And from where? And where were they hiding? And why hadn't they appeared openly, even though they had sent a letter in their name? Nothing could explain that. But not only had the four siblings not joined in on Hideyoshi's laughing, they also seemed unable to completely deny in their hearts the possibility of a 19th person.
Kyrie-san, please don't misunderstand. It's not as though we believe in anything like that fairy tale-like legend of the witch.
Is this another topic to insult, Father? Simply speaking of such a thing is a betrayal against him. I wonder. However, this is Father we're talking about. It could be possible, right? I don't know anything.
What's this? What's this? Why has everyone gotten so gloomy? What are you talking about? In short, this legend of the witch isn't a joke, but a fact. That's ridiculous.
Of course, nobody believes in some witch riding a broom and flying in the sky. But the woman in that portrait, Beatrice, might really have existed on this island. Hideyoshi-san, it looks like we aren't talking about a witch, but something a little simpler. So it must be something like this. Everyone suspects that Father had a mistress named Beatrice, secretly living somewhere on this island. Is that it? Father was always exemplary at keeping strictly to the rules. It's completely inconceivable that he would bring something so filthy onto this island. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. Natsuhi snapped at them immediately, but it looked like the four siblings, including Kraus, didn't agree. On the contrary, they appeared to think Kinzo wouldn't even have hesitated to do something like that. From the beginning, it had been whispered that Kinzo had built a mansion on this island, specifically because of the existence of an enchanting mistress. I'm sorry, Natsuhi-san, I know how much you respect Dad, but that rumor's been around for a long time. All the buildings on Rokonjima were built by Dad on his own. People have always guessed he had some contraption or secret room set up in this mansion that only he knew about, and it's always been whispered that, hidden somewhere on this island, there's a secret mansion none of us know about. I see. This island might look small on a map, but it's quite large for just the Ushiromiya family to live on. So people have suspected that he built a secret mansion somewhere in the uncivilized forest for his mistress to live in? That would be quite a large-scale scheme. In the beginning, people thought it might be somewhere inside this mansion, that there might be a hidden basement with a fabulous hidden room where the witches in that portrait was secretly hiding. After seeing that intricate autolog on Dad's study, it isn't too hard to imagine, right?
After all, Father did spread the rumor that a large amount of gold was hidden somewhere by some mechanism. I wouldn't be surprised if there existed some hidden room inside this very mansion that none of us knows about yet.
When Mother was alive, she would often scour the entire mansion searching for Father when he wasn't anywhere to be found. Mother also suspected what Rudolph just said. She believed that there was a hidden door or stairway somewhere and that his blonde-haired mistress was hidden behind it. It's hard to believe, but there are some actual examples in other countries of people cheating with someone over a period of several decades by making them live in a hidden attic room. Furthermore, Kinzo had a mansion this extravagant, it was possible to suspect the existence of a hidden room.
From what I've heard, the legend of the Rokenjima witch was just a fairy tale made up to scare children away from the uncivilized forest. But it's starting to sound like there's a little more to the story. Well, as you know, this is a lonely island without anything but the Ushiromi of Mansion on it. When Rose and I were little brats on stormy nights, we got so scared by the sound of trees rustling in the direction of the forest. We had this crazy delusion that something weird might be looking out at us from between those trees. It's only natural for a brat to think of stuff like that. But when Rose and I complained about it, some people figured it was more than a brat's imagination. Isn't that right, Anarchy? Yeah. Nissan and I thought you might have coincidentally spotted Father's mistress living in secrecy on this island as she went out for a walk when no one was looking. Of course, Mother felt the same.
Even among the older servants, you often heard that ghost story about how the witch of the portrait wanders the mansion at midnight. Outwardly, I laughed it off as just a ghost story, but on the inside, I suspected very much that it hinted at the existence of a hidden mistress.
In that case, you're saying that the existence of a 19th person might not be completely ridiculous? That they might actually be somewhere around here?
Sounds like one of those devil's proofs Rudolph's always talking about. It might be possible to prove that there's a 19th person, but it's impossible to prove that a 19th person doesn't exist. Should we continue this discussion under the assumption that there's a person named Beatrice hiding somewhere on this island?
That's a good plan from the perspective of risk management. It's probably much more prudent to say that she might exist, rather than saying she couldn't exist. I see. Sorry, I was a bit careless. Rosa-san, sorry for laughing just now.
It's fine. I don't mind.
Excuse me. Hideyoshi apologized deeply for taking the worst-case scenario lightly, despite calling himself the president of a company. Silence fell again. Preparing for the existence of a 19th person would mean, in effect, acknowledging the presence of some unknown person hidden on this island. And since this person might be planning something shady, it was only natural that the conversation would turn in an ominous direction.
In the past, Father would sometimes suddenly disappear without telling anyone where he went. After all, he is a man who values silence. It wouldn't have been out of the ordinary for him to shut himself up in some library room after purposefully not telling anyone where he was going. However, when the witch theory was slowly refined into the theory about his mistress, people eventually whispered that he was secretly going back and forth to see her.
Mom was totally paranoid in her last years. She'd sometimes suddenly start making a fuss, asking the servants to start looking for Dad immediately because of some urgent situation.
Yes, that did happen sometimes. Mother was always doing things like that in her later years, and that frightening atmosphere still hasn't gone away. I can say it for certain now. She was a person to be pitied.
So then, what happened with those large-scale searches of the house? Didn't they find anything?
No. Father wasn't caught foolishly in a hidden room even once. Always, after a long time had passed, he would suddenly show up somewhere. Then he'd say that he'd taken a nap in some library room or that the wind had summoned him to take a walk on the beach. But it was always someplace where the servants had already looked. We never knew where Father had gone. Even at that time, Grandfather was famous for his occult inclinations, so some of the servants exaggerated, saying that he might have turned into butterflies and danced around the rose garden. So, in short, Father frequently disappeared and no one knew where he went.
Yeah. Since we couldn't find him no matter how much we looked inside the mansion, we got more and more sure that Dad might have been somewhere outside. But the area outside the mansion isn't large at all, which leaves only the forest. And if you tie that in with the legend of the witch, you get a theory like this. Father actually built a hidden mansion somewhere in the forest, inside of which a mistress by the name of Beatrice lived and sometimes went to see her.
I was also young at the time. I was so eager to find where Father was having his affair that at one time I followed him when he went outside. Of course, it was a failure. Every time Father went out, he was oddly intent on avoiding places where he might be seen, and was extremely careful to prevent anyone from spotting him. and he was extraordinarily earnest in his attempts to do so. But that actually made me sure. He must have been going out for some reason that the members of his family couldn't know about.
And that'd be going to meet his mistress. Probably trying to avoid being seen.
After seeing Hideyoshi nod and say yes, yes, as though this was quite obvious, Eva got a little sullen. Well, anyway, this island was like a little sketchbook in which Father, with his Western obsession, could draw out all of his dreams. Everything about this island was exactly how Father wanted it. It wouldn't be odd at all if there was a hidden mansion somewhere for his mistress to live in. Ava's words spoke for when all the siblings had come to think. For a while, the room had returned to silence again, and everyone listened to the sound of the wind and rain. Was there a hidden mansion on this island, and had Kinzo's mistress been living there in hiding for a long, long time? Everyone thought they were being too suspicious, and they hesitated for a long time without speaking. But everyone shared a common opinion. Kyrie, who had been listening the whole time with her eyes closed, spoke to no one in particular. How long has this rumor about Father's mistress been around? As soon as we moved to this island, about 30 years ago. After all, it probably would have been impossible for him to have a hidden mansion built while we were here. People and materials would have to be going in and out. It would have been exposed quickly. So if it was possible it happened before we moved here, it probably could have been built along with his mansion when we were still living in Odawara. Since Father had to set up a double life with his family and mistress, it's probably reasonable to assume that he had planned it all from the beginning. And his relationship with that mistress probably went back to the days when we lived in Odawara.
Probably. If, as Father says, she's the source of the vast amount of gold he used to gain the funds that resurrected the Ushiromiya family, we could probably conclude that they had a close relationship since Odawara. A relationship trusting enough for her to lend him a vast quantity of gold. I can't even imagine how old that relationship must have been.
Perhaps Father gave her some valuable advice for succeeding in business. It's natural to think that out of a sense of gratitude for that, this person gave Father the gold. If you think about it that way, it's obvious that they would have a close relationship after that. Rather than a festering relationship with a mistress, it was probably a relationship of gratitude to the person who saved the Ushiromiya family from its crisis.
I don't know if what Natsuhi-san's saying has a ring of truth to it or not, but even in that case, isn't building a hidden mansion and having her live in it going a bit too far? Doesn't that mean they felt something a little bit more than gratitude?
Well, this is all just speculation. In the first place, no one's ever found that hidden mansion. Aniki, you were planning on expanding this island into a resort, right? As you were doing that, you didn't manage to stumble in it by any chance, did you? Maybe you even bumped into some gold there, too.
Do you think Rokenjima's Treasure Island or something?
Don't play dumb. We know that although you say you're opening a resort, you have really been planning to investigate the entire island, right? Judging by all that trouble and confusion we were talking about earlier, you haven't been very successful, have you?
I don't know what you're talking about, but it's a misunderstanding. Isn't it perfectly natural that investigating this island would be the first step into turning it into a resort?
Krause tried to play dumb, but it was plainly obvious to his siblings who knew him so well. Krause was definitely sure of the existence of a hidden mansion, and under the pretense of opening a resort, he had been closely investigating the island, searching for a clue as to the location of the hidden gold. They couldn't tell whether that conviction was just him overthinking things or whether it was based on some physical proof. Still, if Krause, with all his guile, was sure, that was enough proof for the other siblings to be sure too.
The story about a witch living in a forest is obviously a fairy tale, but the story about some blonde-haired girl living secretly in a mansion no one knows about in the middle of the forest is much better.
That's right. That really would be just like a fairy tale. You like those, don't you, Rosa? Well...
When the mansion was built on this island, Father was at the height of his prosperity. With his money, he could probably obtain anything, make any of his wild imaginings real. Imagine in the forest where a witch quietly waits. It sounds like the kind of situation Father would like.
Doesn't it? Like something from the occult or a fairy tale? It feels like Dad's kind of hobby. Oh, hi, Lady Catherine. My cat has decided to come sit on my lap. Yeah. On this island, which the Ushiromiya family had lived for 30 years now, a hidden mansion that no one knew about had been quietly built to house a witch about whom nothing was known except what could be guessed from a portrait. Even this hastily thrown together theory might not be completely delusional, considering all of Kinzo's strange habits and his vast wealth. It might not have been impossible for Father to build a hidden mansion to satisfy his dreams. However, let's be realistic. Would it be possible to house his beloved woman in that hidden mansion for decades without it becoming inconvenient? Well... Hey, his little kitty, thank you for the raid. Appreciate you joining. How's it going? How was the stream? I was able to catch it a little bit. Yeah, you were playing Skylanders, right? It went well, and you're managing? Okay, yeah, Skylanders.
That's what I thought.
All right, well, thank you so much for the raid. Appreciate you being here, and yeah, I was glad to be able to stop by. I know it's been a while. I've been very busy lately, so it was nice to be able to actually pop in for a change. Yeah. Well, if there was love, it could have been doable, right? Think of the facilities needed to let his beloved woman live healthily, and in a way that would satisfy Father. Welcome so much. Gotta adult every now and again. Yep, yeah. Adulting, yeah, that's a thing, alright. For example, even if it was on a small scale, it would have to be an intricate and pleasant residence. And it would probably need to have electricity, gas, and running water maintained, as well as possibly some people to help her. Even providing for her meals would be quite difficult. She would need clothes and makeup, daily necessities. The needs of a woman aren't simple. Would it be possible to maintain all of that without any of the family or the servants noticing? When you say it that way, it sure sounds like a weak point in our theory. But that isn't enough to get rid of my feeling that Dad might have been able to do it anyway. After all, it's Dad we're talking about. That's right, it is our father. If Father wanted to succeed in an endeavor, he would succeed no matter what. Saying that something would be difficult for a normal person and therefore impossible doesn't apply when it comes to Father. Okay, Natsuhi, you can stop simping for the man, please.
Indeed. You should never underestimate Father. Father's madness can't be understood by normal people. I wouldn't put it past that, Kinzo.
As long as you stick to this phrase, a considerable amount of credibility can dwell in any absurd story. However, that didn't cause the importance of what Kyrie had said to waver. This was different from stealthily raising a kitten in a cardboard box and keeping it a secret from your parents. Taking care of a person in secret over a period of 30 years would be an incalculable... Hold on, I'm gonna get this. Incalculably, there we go, massive task.
After all, Father's legend of the gold started before he gained possession of Rokanjima. That'd mean his relationship with his mistress was over 30 years long. How old would that make her? In the worst case, she could be as old as us, or older, right? By that age, the body starts to break down. I don't care what the mansion's like, I wouldn't use the word agreeable to describe living in a place where people's eyes can't reach, almost like she was under house arrest.
That's right. If what Father told us about Beatrice is true, then that relationship has lasted for over 30 years. She might have been a charming young woman at the time, but it probably makes sense to assume she's an old bag like us now. I can easily imagine that, given the contents of that letter.
You should talk.
Kraus laughed as if none of this applied to him. Of course, Ava was offended, but she didn't strike back. Quit it, Aniki. So if everything we're thinking's true, then she should be joining in on Dad's inheritance problem with her head held high. After all, there's a good chance their love was mutual, unlike with Mom. Even if she knows she's his mistress, she might be also proud to be his true wife.
That's an insult to Mother.
Yeah, sorry. However, everyone knows that it was a political marriage decided on by the elders among his relatives. Because of that, it definitely wouldn't be strange for Dad to have a mistress. The family sank after the Great Kanto earthquake, and Father was set up as the Ushiromiya family head against his will. However, in the beginning, the elder relatives treated Kinzo like a dummy and influenced him powerfully, almost like he was a puppet. He wasn't permitted to decide anything by himself, not even his marriage partner. Ever since he met that golden witch Beatrice in those distant days, Kinzo's legend of the gold was quickly embellished into something dramatic. In other words, it could mean that Kinzo really did find a woman he loved. If she also knew the whole story, even if they weren't marriage partners, it wouldn't have been odd to consider herself his true wife inside her heart. And now the person registered as his true wife was already dead.
Which means she might feel confident staking her claim, not just for the rights to his assets, but regarding the battle of the headship, too. I see. I'm starting to see the purpose of this letter. The headship goes to the one who solves the riddle of the epitaph. Is that what it means?
Even if that mistress was added into the family ranking system, she isn't a direct relative of Father, so she'd be inferior even to the children. In other words, she'd be one step below Rosa in rank. That wouldn't be a good position to enter the battle for the headship from.
I see. So that's it. If someone can solve the witch's riddle, they'll get the headship regardless of rank. In other words, it's the most advantageous condition Beatrice could possibly get, since she's got no chance otherwise. The revival of the Ushiromiya family was made possible by the gold Beatrice had bestowed. That was quite a distinguishing service she had provided. She had built that wealth together with Kinzo, so it was natural that she would think of herself as the one who should inherit it. It would also be natural for her to despise the thought of giving it up to the children of the wife Kinzo never loved.
How could she be so impudent? Even if such a mistress actually exists, joining in on the battle for the rights of the head's inheritance would be like a reckless action far above her place. What disregard for her own position!
Natsuhi turned red, her fist quivering. She had also come into the Ushiromiya register due to complicated circumstances. Those who knew that understood more or less why she was so angry for the sake of Kinzo's dead wife.
Well, thanks to that reckless action of hers, we all have an even chance now, right? Father has even given it his silent approval. Will the person who succeeds the Ushiromiya family be his mistress, Beatrice, or one of us, the relatives he doesn't love? Maybe he wants to make a struggle over that to see who's worthy.
As Ava giggled roguishly, Kraus shrugged his shoulders and looked away.
However, since she's the one who brought this rule to light in the first place, maybe that means it gives her a significant advantage.
That's right. In the first place, if Beatrice meant that letter literally, then she's Father's alchemist. In other words, she's the manager of his gold. It wouldn't be strange at all if she knew where it was hidden, would it? Isn't that harsh? It's like she's giving us a riddle she knows the answer to. She'll probably show up rudely, say, "Here's the answer. I'll take the headship now. Snatch everything away from us."
That's right. The person who brings up a riddle always knows the answer. There's a good chance that this is all a trap to steal everything from us.
If you think about it like that, don't you start To doubt whether she really had any gold in the first place? Why would she tell us about it? All she has to do is keep quiet and embezzle it.
It really is strange. That certainly was the case. If the epitaph showed the way to the hidden gold, why would she challenge them to try and solve it? If they actually did solve it, wouldn't the gold all be stolen from her? Could it be that this person was trying to stir the siblings up so they'd solve the epitaph, and then plan to steal it away at the last second? It was an extremely logical possibility. No, if you spin the chessboard around, there might be a pretty good chance that they actually do have the gold. Why are you so certain? Wait, Aniki. Kyrie, please keep talking. Why do you think that? After all, do they really think we'll let go of the Ushiromiya family headship just because someone tells us the answer to the riddle in the witch's epitaph? That we'll be so impressed by their answer that we'll just give up?
Well, that's true. No way they're so naive that they'd assumed we'd just give up after being told the answer to a riddle, and we'd just say, here you go, and hand it over.
Of course. The headship of the Ushiromiya family is not something that can be handed over so easily. That's it, exactly. No matter how Beatrice might one-sidedly propose a game like this, even if she were to spectacularly show us the answer, there's no way we'd obediently hand over the headship. In other words, unless she has a compelling force in the form of challenging us to a game with equal conditions for us all, this won't truly count as a game. You're right. Unless the losers have no choice but to give up on the headship because of a compelling force, this won't really count as a game.
And what might this compelling force be? Will they bind us in chains and threaten us into handing over the headship?
I see. I get it. They just have to do something to make us want to give up the headship willingly. Yes, I see. To do that, Beatrice would have to own 10 tons of gold.
I see. I get it too. In other words, it's a trade?
Huh? But what do you mean? A trade? Trade what? The Ushiromiya family headship for the hidden gold. Beatrice surely plans to tell us the location of the 10 tons of gold and use that as a bribe to gain the Ushiromiya family headship. But ridiculous! They want to trade the headship of the glorious Ushiromiya family for money? That's blasphemy! Blasphemy against the Ushiromiya family! Please listen without getting mad. About how much wealth does this glorious Ushiromiya family have right now? Are we really that affluent? The definition of affluence is not dependent on property. It's about heart. Our financial situation has nothing to... Kraus interrupted Natsuhi as she started to go on and on emotionally. In this situation, the more she went on like that, the worse it would actually sound.
Me aside, I hear your current situations are quite unfavorable.
Oh, really? I've heard that your financial situation's really bad too. Offering up more and more as collateral for new money to gamble with, repeatedly dabbling in new gambles, unable to accept your losses. If we count what's going on behind the scenes, you're in even bigger financial straits than the rest of us. Just how much money have you lost, Nissan? You have no talent! Who are you saying has no talent? And what do you mean financial straits? Natsuhi became indignant once more, but Kraus raised his hand again and interrupted her.
It seems you are making a small mistake. Business is not something that can be judged based on current progress alone. For someone with a long-term outlook on business such as myself, it may sometimes appear at a glance that I have suffered significant short-term losses.
Aniki, we have been collecting evidence. Your position right now isn't one to be proud of. So this is what Kyrie is trying to say. Every one of us has got money trouble, and Beatrice has 10 tons of gold. As the only person who knows the location of the 10 tons of gold, Beatrice is planning on using it to force us to sell the headship. About how much is 10 tons of gold worth? At a rough estimate, let's say 2 billion yen?
No, 20 billion yen. With that much piled up, we'd be ecstatic to accept her as the successor.
The scene returned to silence. In fact, the rain and wind felt even noisier now. It was probably the sound of the windstorm racing through the insides of their minds.
This isn't funny! To think we'd give up the headship to some woman of doubtful origin, just because she had a little money stored up.
Don't be stupid. The headship wasn't even yours in the first place, right? We got nothing to lose and money to gain. We'll have to calculate our profit and loss, but it's something worth listening to.
They knew that Kraus had eaten up much of the Ushiromiya family's assets, so it was the dregs that remained of that inheritance versus the cost of being accepted as the head that Beatrice would pay. It was a shame, but honestly, the former was less enticing than the latter. Well, it probably wouldn't end up as 4 equal portions. Since Aniki would be giving up his position of successor, his portion would have to be larger. Makes me feel kind of jealous, you know?
Dear, the amount of money isn't the problem, right? You cowardly younger siblings are trying to sell the glory of the Ushiromiya family for money, don't you see? I mean, your cowardly younger siblings are trying to sell the glory of the Ushiromiya family for money, don't you see? Why aren't you displaying your dignity as the oldest son?
Natsuhi, stay quiet for a while.
Dear!
This is a dizzying proposal. We were each planning on getting 250 million yen out of Aniki. If the witch treats us with 10% of those 10 tons... that's 2 billion. Yeah. That means she's treating us with 10 times our original goal. That alone would be more than enough for us. It's not like I've got any attachment to the Ushiromiya name. I'd be happy to sell it off. Even if 10 tons is a slightly optimistic figure, yes, it'd still be a fascinating prospect for us. We were trying to form an alliance among the siblings to kick this outsider called Beatrice out. But if this is her plan, it'll tear apart the unity between us. Yeah, by this point we can state it clearly. The goal of Beatrice's letter was to disturb our alliance. If the 3 younger siblings who never had anything to do with the inheritance were paid enough money to satisfy them, they would happily accept Beatrice as the next head. A moat had been dug all around Kraus. In that case, the negotiations would be one-on-one between her and Kraus. He tried to look strong, but Kraus's financial and political situation was extremely weak. He might bluff in front of his siblings, but on the inside, he was considering entering negotiations depending on the sum of money involved. In order to bury his losses, Kraus had taken advantage of the fact that Kinzo had shut himself up in his room and had embezzled Kinzo's personal assets. Therefore, when Kinzo died and the inheritance was distributed, Kraus's situation would probably be investigated. But if he gave up his seat as head to Beatrice... But if he gave up his seat as the head to Beatrice, she would also receive rights to the assets, and as a result, the distribution of the inheritance to the siblings would not occur. In other words, Kraus's embezzlement might not have to be made known to the other siblings. Of course, the siblings were frightened of Kinzo, but it was doubtful whether they still actually respected him as a father. By this time, they each had their own families, their own wealth, and their own lives. If they were paid enough money in exchange for Rokenjima, the wreckage of Kinzo's dreams, there was a significant likelihood that they'd relinquish the Ushiromiya family name. In other words, Beatrice's victory was already guaranteed in this game. Not as the winner of Beatrice's game, but as the winner of Kinzo's game. Kinzo once ordered that the epitaph be put on display, and until today no one had solved it, so Beatrice solved it. In other words, this is less of a game, and more like Beatrice's declaration of victory. However, Kyrie still thought there might be a catch. If this was a declaration of victory, Beatrice would only have had to display the gold openly and state her intent to buy the inheritance. And yet she had gone to all this trouble, telling the siblings to try and solve the epitaph. Why did she set up this new game where she agreed to hand over all the gold and the inheritance to the epitaph solver? Kyrie tried spinning the chessboard around several times. She searched for the sort of ideal strategy Beatrice might be after, something that could lead to this kind of thinking. In the end, she reached a single conclusion. Could it be arrogance? Or maybe she's playing? What are you talking about? The witch sent us a letter of challenge, forcing us to try and solve the epitaph. She might be taking us lightly, thinking we could never solve it. However, at the very least, there ought to be an extremely small chance that we do solve it. After all, we have here 4 of Father's children by blood, right? The questioner called together 4 blood relatives who, if they tried frantically to work together and avoid having those assets stolen from them, might come across the answer of the riddle by chance. The reason the witch had a superior position in negotiations compared to the siblings was that only she knew the location of the hidden gold. But if that hiding place was exposed to someone other than her, the witch's advantage would crumble. In short, Beatrice gains nothing but risk by writing this witch's letter of challenge. Of course, it might have had the effect of splitting apart the siblings' alliance, but if that was her only goal, why would she take this risk, however slight it might be? That seems reckless to me. But if we keep in mind a certain type of emotion, that risk becomes comprehensible. And you're saying it's arrogance? Yes, that's right. When people have an overwhelming advantage, they tend to get arrogant. And when they do, they want to show off that advantage to the losers, so they sometimes take on small risks. A moderate amount of risk adds a little spice to the joy of victory. It'd be boring to win without any risk.
I shall fight him left-handed.
You know what a hurry we're in!
It's the only way I can be satisfied. If I kill him with my right, over too quickly.
So like that, basically. They're assuming that this is her way of fighting left-handed. I understand. I like that kind of thing, too. Yeah, I understand it well. I thought of a few plausible explanations for the true motive behind Beatrice's letter. Sorry, I forgot who was speaking at the moment. But I think this really might be the truth. The emotion hidden behind the letter was arrogance. Arrogance. She's trying to throw her weight around, looking down on us as if there's no way we could figure out such a difficult epitaph. It might even be possible, if surprising, the epitaph wasn't written by Father, but by her. Sounds great. Solve the riddle of the epitaph, she says. If only I had solved it, I would be made the head, right? I'll solve it. I'll accept the witch's challenge. As if those other idiot siblings could solve it. I'll solve it by myself, and then I'll prove that I'm the one who's fit to succeed the Ushiromiya family. I'll take that challenge. I will. Solve the riddle. Chapter break. Okay. Very good, which means it is time for me to go on a brief break. Give me just a moment here while I wait for the scene to enter. Okay, so I'm going to put this on Be Right Back mode, and then I'll be back in a little while.
Okay, we're back. I see. So she's not a witch, but a mistress named Beatrice who lived on the island. So there can be more than 18 people. Which means I can defeat the line of reasoning that says any crime impossible for all 18 people must involve magic. That's a big scoop.
Pardon me. Battler-sama, would you like some black tea and cookies?
Beato's butler, who called himself Ronove, appeared out of nowhere. Oh, a plate on a silver tray that he held was filled with delicious-looking steaming black tea and cookies. Oh, it is Battler talking. I really don't like this guy's smile. For some reason, it doesn't look like a smile used to warmly greet a guest. Feels like he's mocking me somehow. I don't know if he really takes me for an idiot or if it's just a joke or something, but it's really irritating me. I don't need any. I'm busy now. Leave me alone.
Oh my. Such a shame. And the cookies were so delicious, too. Cooked so wonderfully that they would be wasted on a mere human.
I'll eat some when I feel like it. Just set it down somewhere and get out of here.
Will that be acceptable? Then I shall do so. You may eat them when they get cold and stale, and then regret to the fullest that you did not eat them while they were fresh.
You really are annoying. Well, you're a lot better than that Beato who keeps doing that creepy cackle right next to my ear.
Yes, that is quite true. There are times when Milady's laughter becomes quite undignified. Every time I hear it, I find it painful to comprehend why such a noble demon as myself must serve such a master.
Man, you're weird. If you don't like it, then couldn't you just not work for her?
And yet, to continue serving is furniture's joy. If we do not serve, we would hardly be furniture. Setting that aside, how has the game been proceeding? Just now you seem to have found some useful information that quite pleased you. Well, now I wonder what your shallow wit has conjured up.
As Ronove mocked me and giggled, he followed my earlier words literally and placed the black tea and cookies in a random spot nearby.
In any case, it appears you are now more confident in the existence of a 19th person, yes? Would you be gracious enough to allow me to hear your opinion?
Yeah, sure. I'm just gonna say it again in front of Beato anyway. No reason to hide it. Basically, it looks like there's a hidden mansion somewhere on this island and that grandfather had his mistress living there. So the question that's been torturing me about whether there are 18 or 19 people can be easily resolved.
You have driven yourself into a corner because of the dead end that you yourself have created. Even though you deny the witch, Battler Salma, you hold a double standard and refuse to accept that the culprit is one of the 18.
The easiest way to deny the witch would be to suspect one of the 18. It isn't easy to gather alibis for every one of them. You always find at least one person with a fragile alibi. I could probably continue to deny the witch forever if I just used that person as a scapegoat. However, I refuse to do that. It's useless. It's all useless. Every one of those people is either a parent or relative or a cousin to me. And those reliable servants who are sometimes serious and sometimes fun to be with, I won't let myself use any one of them as a scapegoat. In my past, my resolve wavered. That's how Beato hit me where my heart was weak.
Accepting and understanding one's own weaknesses. It is not something that can often be accomplished. Battler Summit, you use this theory about a 19th person as a spear. Or should I say, a shield. In any event, in contrast to how unprepared you were in the previous games, the fact that you now have a compass bearing on how to fight is a dramatic leap forward, let us say. With this, you can suspect a 19th person and pursue your theory that the culprit is a human, without having to doubt any of the 18 you love and respect.
That's it exactly. Like in the first game when Kanen-kun was killed in the boiler room, and a bunch of other places, there were plenty of tricks I could have mentioned without hesitation. As long as the 19th person existed. In the very first game, Kanen-kun was killed in the boiler room. One might think he was attacked by Kumasawa-san, who had gone down into the boiler room with him, or maybe that someone who had appeared to be dead earlier was actually faking and had ambushed him. Either way, it was a move that forced me to suspect one of the 18. However, by simply proposing that a 19th person existed, there was no longer any need to suspect one of the 18 for that murder in the boiler room. In short, I can at least deny the line of reasoning saying that if something is impossible for every one of the 18, therefore the culprit is a witch. Hold on. Wait. Where did that go? Where is it? In short, I can at least deny the line of reasoning saying that. Okay, so he's denying the line of reasoning that says if something is impossible for everyone in the 18, therefore the culprit is a witch. Using this argument, it's easy to explain. For example, the problematic case that has already occurred in this game: who gave Maria the letter? Even if all 18 people have alibis, I could easily explain everything by saying that a 19th person must have visited her and given her the letter.
I'd say that's quite a good move. Now, how would I strike back against it? You still have plenty of weak points, even if you are aware of them. Maybe the 18-person attack would be an effective move. To judge the strength of your defense, it may be amusing to contest that point again.
Then how will you do it, Demon Butler?
I believe it would be appropriate to ambush the piece representing this 19th person that you mentioned. Battler-sama, you have never met this 19th person, yes? Would you please show some proof that this 19th person exists?
How naive. Of course I knew you'd probably try that move.
My. Please respond to it.
Witches and demons and the like. There's no more fitting move for you guys to use. It's one of those. The devil's proof! When you try to make some claim to humans like us, we always counterattack by telling you to show some proof, because that's a human move. But I'm fighting with a witch. I'm taking part in a battle with someone who isn't human! And some moves exist that can only be used in a game against a witch. They're cheat moves. And that's what this devil's proof is, because it's impossible to prove. Let's assume that there's a hidden mansion in Rokenjima separate from the Ushiromiya family mansion, and that a woman named Beatrice lives there. In order to prove this, one must find this mansion and actually bring Beatrice out of it. That's called actual proof in the human world. However, if we follow the rules of the devil's proof, you can't deny that she exists, even if there's no proof that she does. Because it's impossible to prove that something doesn't exist. That's right, I'm finally able to turn the tables using this devil's proof, which tormented me so much before. Those guys were always trying to force me to accept the existence of the witch with it. After all, it was physically impossible for me to show any proof that witches don't exist and deny Beato's claims. That's why I kept getting hit with a reckless argument that witches do exist and was unable to counterattack. And that's why I'll spin the chessboard around right now. If I can't disprove the existence of witches, then that means if I suggest that a 19th human exists, you can't deny that either. In other words, because of this problematic and mysterious mistress is craftily hiding herself, it'd be perfectly natural if you never found her no matter how hard you looked. So you can't say that your inability to find this 19th person proves that she doesn't exist. Therefore, it's impossible to deny the 19th person's existence. Beato used the devil's proof to make denying her own existence impossible, but this time it's become my weapon. We can get away with this argument, then just forget just a 19th person. This island could be full of people we don't know about. And even if they were 10 or 100 of them, she still couldn't deny that they existed. In the last game and the one before that, among the murder scenes that showed up, there were several that were extremely intricate and must have taken a lot of effort to set up. It's really hard to imagine a single culprit setting up all those. However, not just a 19th person, but 10 or 100 people were hidden somewhere. That wouldn't be any problem at all. If they all split up the work, they could handle any job in a short period of time. Of course, doubts will naturally arise as to whether a large group of people like that could sneak around the mansion without being noticed. But those are all settled by the devil's proof. You can't deny that even 100 people were there just because they weren't seen or noticed. Even though I'm saying it myself, it's just a stupid argument that makes me want to throw up. Ugh. However, because it's such a dirty move, it's a perfect one to use against a witch. Well, this is just my imagination, but
What if about 100 suspicious men wearing goat masks were hiding in the shadows? Something like that's worse than laughable, almost like they were cockroaches. If you see one, it means there's 100 more hiding somewhere. Well, I do think it's a ridiculous argument that's horribly twisted. If my opponent were human, I'm sure they'd yell at me like I was out of my mind. But my opponent is a witch. And after all, that's the kind of competition we're having, isn't it? I'll use any kind of reckless argument to explain it using humans and deny the witch. Anyway, with this move, I won't have to doubt any of the 18 who are close to me again. Hey, Kush Completionist, thank you for joining. How goes it? You came in on a reasoning segment, if you can call it reasoning. It's going good for me. Guys, check out Kush Completionist. He's been playing Resident Evil 3 now. You're using the PS5 upgrade on that? How is it? Is that one you've played before on PS4, or is it one that you are just now starting for the first time? Anyway, with this move, I won't have to doubt any of the 18 who are close to me again. I won't suffer a defeat like last time again. Yeah, played the hell out of it on PS4, now playing the upgrade. Nice, nice.
I see. You've learned from your previous defeat. That is good. It is no surprise that you've become so devious now that you're in your third game. You first strengthen your own defense. That is truly a solid first step. And quite a spectacular move, I would say.
You could have carried your save file, but you wanted to do it all over again. Yeah, that's a good game right there, then, if you enjoy it enough that you want to play it twice. That's kind of how it was for me with Death Stranding Director's Cut. I mean, I wanted to have my original save file there, but apparently it only allows for one playthrough at a time on your account, so go figure. But that's fine. I just started over from scratch on Director's Cut, and so it just means I don't have to pop the trophies again. Well, even if we do, do assume that there's a 19th person. There are still a few tricks left that I can't resolve, like the actual number of master keys, no matter how many humans I add. Still, it isn't bad as a first step for the time being.
Battler Summit, your trump card is the important piece called the 19th person. You countered my move of asking where the proof was by using the Devil's Proof. A good skirmish. Although I must apologize for making a move by myself when Milady isn't here, I find that I too am growing slightly interested. I wonder if you'll allow me to make yet another move on Milady's behalf.
Let's have it. I got no shortage of opponents, be they witches or demons.
This move you presented called the Devil's Proof. It's a specialty of us demons, but there are also other various... There are also various other moves available to us. Do you know of a move called Hempel's Raven?
Hempel's Raven? What are you talking about? Just then, that enraging laugh I've heard so many times started echoing. The room is filled with dazzling golden butterflies, and in the center of that whirlwind, the Golden Witch appeared.
If it isn't Milady, good morning.
I thought you might be doing something interesting while I was away. Hempel's Raven, was it? Such a familiar old move, I could almost laugh. To think the day has come when I get to show it off to Battler. It's a classic move to use against the Devil's Proof. Ronave, I'll make this move. Do not get in the way of my fun. So, you've finally shown up, you guffawing witch. I see you're laughing like a freak just as usual. This guy was talking behind your back just now, telling me how undignified you look when you do that. Right?
How rude! Is that true?
Nonsense. Why would I speak such gossip about milady, whom I regard with such sincere respect?
I can't believe you'd say something so shameless.
Doesn't look like we'll be getting along well together.
Well, that is fine. Let us return to the point at hand. Hempel's raven is used to show actual proof using the contrapositive. In other words, it is a move like this. What must you do to prove that ravens are black? Huh? What are you talking about? Prove that ravens are black? Wouldn't you just have to catch a raven and check to see if it's black? That's right. You must simply prove that a raven equals black. Do you see that if you instead prove that birds that aren't black equal not ravens, you would reach the same argument? If you go throughout the world and examine all birds that are not ravens and prove that none of them are black, then as a result you can claim that therefore black birds are ravens. This is called an argument by the contrapositive. Is that too difficult for you? Yeah, no kidding. I've got no idea what you're saying.
Battler Sama, what about this example? Let us say you have 2 boxes, and one of them is a winner with a cookie inside. Of course, the other one is a loser and is empty. For example, here are 2 boxes, where one has a cookie inside and means you win, while the other is empty and means you lose. At this moment, it has a cookie inside equals you win, which implies that you do not win equals it had no cookie inside. When such a relationship exists, the latter is called the contrapositive. When if A then B is true, then if not B, then not A is also true.
Well, that's obvious. If the one you guessed was the loser, then you'd automatically know that the other one was the winner. In other words, if you choose the box at random, whether it's the winner or the loser, you'll be able to figure out which box has the cookie in it after your first move. That is correct. If the cookie is in the box you open, then the devil's proof is satisfied. You can directly prove that this box is the winner equals this box has a cookie in it. However, if the box you open is empty, then the reverse Hempel's raven is satisfied. In other words, this box does not have a cookie in it equals this box isn't the winner. And as long as we accept the premise that there are no more than 2 boxes, the contrapositive shows that the other box is automatically the winner. Well, I think I'm starting to see your reasoning. Only poison can stop poison, and only twisted logic can stop twisted logic. Then what? How does that overturn my claim that because there's definitely a 19th human hidden on this island, even if all 18 people have alibis, I still won't have to accept witches? Very well. I will teach you about my move. First of all, you were stating that the culprit is not among the 18 equals the culprit is a 19th person. So if you use the contrapositive, it ends up like this. In short, the culprit is not a 19th person equals the culprit is one of the 18. Huh? What do you mean? Only that I've countered your move. Let's try and keep things simple. Ronove, explain. It seems you've made things easy enough for Battler to understand with your cookie in a box analogy.
Then forgive my presumption. Allow me to explain my earlier example once more. Allow me to repeat my earlier story about 2 treasure boxes, one of which has a cookie in it. In this situation, you have an 18-person box and a 19th-person box. So the cookie represents the culprit. Battler Sama, let's say you open the 18-person box. Because the cookie is not there, you have paradoxically proven that, therefore, the cookie is in the 19th-person box. That lets us make an even more paradoxical claim. In other words, if it was first shown that the 19th person box was empty, it would prove at the same time that the cookie is in the 18-person box. Battler Sama played this move in order to avoid having to doubt any of the 18, but has now been used to prepare an 18-person attack.
What the hell? If I go first and prove that the inside of the 19th person box is empty, you will automatically have to accept that the cookie is in the 18-person box. All I've done is say it the other way around, yes? So, that move I was so confident in was actually a double-edged sword? That's right. As soon as you played that move and attempted to explain everything with the 19th person, you'd already taken on a risk that you might be forced to accept that the culprit was one of the 18. I see. Hempel's Raven. So this is a countering technique? Wait, if I really think about it, this counter is really disadvantageous for me. This isn't a cookie we're talking about. If I imagine that the loser treasure chest actually has a bomb in it, it gets even clearer. And there aren't just 2 treasure chests, but 18 plus 1 more for the 19th person. If you think of it as a total of 19 boxes, it gets even easier to picture. First off, one of the premises of the human culprit theory is that the bomb will definitely be in one of these boxes. I didn't want to place the bomb in the boxes for any of the 18, so I used the devil's proof. And I created the 19th person box so I could throw the bomb in there. That much was fine. But then Beato struck back. Now, if the contents of the 19th person box are empty, that'll automatically mean that the bomb's in one of the other 18 boxes. If I could examine what's inside all 18 of those boxes, then as long as I can show that the bomb isn't in any of them, I'll be able to safely show that the 18 are innocent. If that were possible, I'd have nothing to fear. However, in reality, that'd be almost absolutely impossible. The police wouldn't come here in this typhoon. We don't have access to scientific investigations or experts or anything. In short, we can't prove anything decisively. It'll be impossible for me to find any proof other than simply gulping down whatever alibis each of the 18 give. That means I personally have to prove their innocence, and I have to do it perfectly. Like by staying with them the whole time, never letting them out of my sight for a second. By doing that, I can probably be sure of that person's innocence. Sure that the bomb isn't in their box. However, in practical terms, that'll be impossible. In other words, I'd have to expend an incredible effort just to check the contents of one box. And there are 18 of them! In other words, unless I bound all 18 of them in chains and watch over them, it'll be impossible to prove that all of them have empty boxes. However, Beato only has to open one box, the 19th person box, and show that it's empty to prove that the bomb's in one of the other 18 boxes. Furthermore, there's no need for her to show which of the 18 boxes has the bomb. I got 18 times more work to do to explain my pet theory than Beatrice does for hers. When a devil's proof exists in the world, it takes a vast amount of effort to argue against it, and there are many cases in which it is impossible to do because of the situation. However, Hempel's Raven turns that problem around and makes it possible to prove things easily.
By using Hempel's Raven, various reckless arguments become possible to prove true or false. For example, let's say that I make the proposition, all humans, except me, equal foolish. Normally, I have to examine all of humanity except myself and show that they are all foolish. However, in reality, it would be impossible to investigate billions of people. It's just the same sort of effort you'd need to open all 18 boxes.
However, by using Hempel's Raven, the contrapositive of that proposition would change it into this. If, to use your phrase, spin the chessboard around on the claim that all humans except me equals foolish, you would have to do nothing more than prove that not foolish equals me. And what do you think that means? As soon as I know the fact that I am wise, I will be able to show in an instant that every one of the billions of people of the human race is foolish. In less than a second, I could finish proving that the entire human race is more foolish than me. It truly is the strongest and fastest QED in the world. This Hempel's Raven. What a ridiculous argument!
It is a very, very convenient move. Not only demons, but gods also use it. When they propose that the blessed equal the servants of a god, the contrapositive is a human is not a servant of a god, equals he must not be blessed. So, in order to prove that servants of the gods are blessed with divine protection, they only have to bring ill fortune down upon those people who don't receive such protection. So, by bringing misfortune down upon those who don't believe in them, they prove their blessedness.
An enormous cost is required to give humans happiness. However, it takes a lot less to bring humans misfortune. So by using Hempel's ravens, gods are actually giving believers the joy of divine protection for cheap. You demon. It's a demon's argument. That's crazy. It seems we've gone off topic. Let us get back to the point. The move for my counterattack is complete. And now, in response to your claim, the 19th person is the culprit, therefore the 18 are innocent, and the witch doesn't exist, I say, therefore, that if I can prove that the culprit is not some 19th person, we can be sure that the culprit is either one of the 18 or a witch. Right? For a while, I just stood there, shocked, completely forgetting to close my mouth. Just when I thought I'd countered one of their strong points, their counterattack had been this reckless argument that I couldn't possibly have anticipated. Is this gonna be impossible after all? To continue denying the witch on an island with no more than 18 people, and still believe in the innocence of those 18 people? Is that just a delusion? Am I just trying to escape reality? Not yet. Don't give up this desperate struggle yet. Who cares about whoever's Raven? You're just trying to confuse me by bringing up weird bits of trivia. I use the devil's proof. Don't feel uncertain about something you've used once. Believe in the spear you've drawn. And then forcefully gouge it in. We're still in the opening part of the game. Do you plan to keep thinking on this level? Wait a second, I want to be sure. I admit I'd talked about a 19th person to keep it simple, but if we're going to use the devil's proof to raise the number of people above 18, then we'd have no way of knowing if there were 10 people, 100 people, or an indeterminate number of people. There's always one more than you assume. Get it? They counter my twisted logic with something even more twisted, so the only thing that can counter that would be even crazier twisted logic. I see. Even if I somehow prove an alibi for the 19th person, as soon as I do, you'll think up a 20th person and claim that they are the culprits. By repeating this endlessly, you would make it so I kept searching for their alibis for all eternity. I see. Just like a demon king summoning a plague of locusts. I wouldn't expect anything less from Kinzo's grandchild. It looks like you have been gifted with a talent in summoning. In short, it's impossible to always prove an alibi for each person X outside of the first 18. How do you like that, Beato? Now that I know we're having a battle with twisted logic, I won't lose. How foolish. Who do you think I am? I am the Endless Witch. The thought that you could challenge me endlessly is just absurd. Endless control means that I am able to kill endlessly. When your 19th person folds, you'll summon a 20th. And when your 20th person folds, you'll summon a 21st. And when your 21 person folds and your 22nd person folds, you'll summon a 23rd person, a 34th person, a 6, 4, 3, 8. Wait. Yeah, 6, 4, 3, 5, 8, 2, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, 6, 7, 3, 2, 0, 4th person. Did you think you'd have me at your mercy for all eternity? I laugh at infinite regress. The infinite doesn't work against me. Well then, how'll you kill my endless? Just try and show me. I have the power to speak the truth in red. Here it comes. When I speak in red, it will contain absolutely no illusions. If I say once in red that there are no more than 100 people on this island, you will no longer be permitted to create a 101st person. See, battler? What truth shall I tell in red this time? Where shall I strike for the kill and force you into hopelessness? Come, show me your usual frightened face. What? But why are you laughing? I wonder what kind of creepy look I had on my face as I laughed right then. That red sure is scary. Every time it jumps out, I'm driven into the depths of hopelessness. But I've already realized something. There's no need to be overly afraid of the red. You've brought out your trump card again. So, how and for what will Beatrice-sama use the red this time? Oh, what do you mean by that? Suddenly looking all so relaxed. Sorry, but I was waiting for you to take out that blood-red treasured sword of yours. Let's see, what will you proclaim in red this time? You aren't going to say the culprit one is those 18 people, are you? Be careful, since that'd mean self-destruction for you, right? That'd be the same as throwing away your own witch theory yourself. A complete resignation. That's right. The red wasn't always a weapon that worked in Beato's favor alone. It was the other way around. If she used it the wrong way, it was dangerous enough that she could bring about her own death. If she used it carelessly and said something that ended up denying herself, that'd be exactly the same as self-destructing. Of course, it'd be sad and difficult for me to accept if you told me in red that one of the 18 was the culprit. No matter who the culprit actually was, I'd definitely have to deal with some tough emotions. But before that, it would mean your defeat! Saying in red that the culprit is a human is equivalent to your proclamation of resignation. If you want to strike me a blow so badly you're prepared to die at the same time, I think that's a pretty interesting move. However, this battle will end in my victory. Beatrice Red was her true trump card. When that person speaks in red, it's definitely the truth, and no amount of proof or counter-arguments can change that. Until now, she's used that to severely wound me, and each time the tiny foundation supporting my heart gets split in half. However, if she uses it carelessly, then I can also glean a little information about the truth. In the last game, I used that to my advantage, especially during the chapel's closed room trick, and almost completely got her boxed in at one point. But she was pretty sly herself. She learned from experience, and since then she started using discretion in the timing of her red. Hey, thank you for redeeming first Christonium, despite being, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth person here. Wait, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, fifth person. Guys, for all of you here, if you want to use first, you got to actually use it first. Even if you're, if the 19th person uses first, that's entirely possible. They use it first. My day's been good, Chris. Thank you. Give me just a moment here. And guys, check out Christonium's channel. He's been playing Tiny Tina's Wonderlands on his channel. How's that game going? I briefly checked it out. Oh, your day's not been so good? Well, that sucks. I'm sorry. But yeah, so how would you say Tiny Tina's compares to the other Borderlands games? And while you're typing out a response to that, I will continue reading here. This feeling of tension was almost literally like a battle with real swords. This is a high-level intellectual battle. You're enjoying it? Really enjoy the chaos runs? Okay. No, not an intellectual battle. This really is twisted logic. This is the world's craziest and worst battle of twisted logic. Okay, now it's time to hear your plan. That's right. To use your Hempel's Raven, first you'll have to confirm in red how many humans there are other than the 18. And after that, if you proclaim in red that none of the people in this group are the culprit, that's right, that might be a fatal wound to me. I'm surprised that you no longer even have an atom of fear for the red which once terrified you so much. You're quite resilient. Try talking it out. You're enjoying the story a bit more as it's a bit more of a fantasy setting. You're a fantasy guy through and through. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Try taking it out. That treasured sword, that trump card of yours. This time you might be able to make me surrender with a single stroke, right? Interesting. I wouldn't have it any other way. Agitator, challenger, drive her into a corner to make her speak in red. Of course, her red's always wiping out my only rays of hope, but don't be afraid of that. On this island overcome with falsehoods and illusions, the only thing I can trust is the information she speaks in red. Has anyone died yet in this episode? Nope, it has not passed midnight yet. It's my only way across the chasm of hell. Just a single tightrope. Her merciless blood-red blade is the only way I can survive. This isn't just walking on a tightrope, it's like literally walking on the edge of a blade. Of course I'm afraid. Because my victory condition is the denial of witches, then, to use your contrapositive logic, the culprit must be a human. But I didn't want to search for a culprit amid the 18. That's what made me stick to a weak position, since I had to claim both that it couldn't be a witch and that it couldn't be one of the 18. Last time I was unable to understand that, and so that's where she hit me, leaving me tattered and defeated. But that's okay. Let her hit me. Let her attack. No problem. Someone said it once in an old sword-fighting movie, that a good fortress has one and only one intentionally weak point. The enemy would gather there, they would be lured there, and that would be where the actual battle took place. As long as I understood my weak points, as long as she wanted to attack those weak points, it was if I were luring into her launching into it was if I were luring her into launching an attack there. Gauge the distance between us with care, retreating step by step, make them move forward. The more she recklessly flourished that red, the more chances I would get to strike back. Don't be afraid of the red. Keep her cornered so that she'll have no choice but to refute me with the red. No matter how oppressively she speaks in red. That's right, the red itself is the same as fresh blood leaking from her wounds. So, what's wrong? First of all, why don't you tell me how many people are on this island total? If you don't, your raven can't cut me up. How surprising that you can be this desperate and yet this difficult. One cannot make light of someone putting their life on the line, no matter what the era. It's no surprise you're Kinzo's grandchild. The more cornered you are, the bolder you become. Ronove cleared his throat.
It appears to be a stalemate. That black tea I worked so hard to make is getting cold, milady.
Ronove, who was supposed to be her ally, roguishly rushed her into making her next move. Beata probably thought she'd manage to smile back and appear confident, but she couldn't hide the sweat building up on her forehead. That's actually kind of built up on her cheek at this point, but, you know. Anyway. What? Uh-oh. What did I do? Okay. Never mind. We're good. By now, she completely lost the confident feeling that had allowed her to turn her nose up at her worthless opponent. Of course, she probably wouldn't be cornered by something like this. She's just being cautious. Until now, I've been inexperienced. I didn't know how to fight, and I wasn't strong enough to be her opponent. However, now that we've reached the third game, she's realized that I'm starting to become more skilled. and she's grown more cautious, thinking every move over carefully. Sure, that's just fine, Beatrice. Sorry to keep you waiting. Are you happy now? Now it's starting to get interesting, huh? Battler. This isn't getting us anywhere. Then, should we get to the heart of the matter and go with the usual? Oh? The usual, you say? Then by all means. If I don't hear you say that, I guess I just won't feel like starting. The first move was mine. Here I go, Beato. Repeat it! On this island, there are only 18 people! If I hear you say this in red, I'll have no choice but to suspect one of the 18. I won't be able to say a 19th person did it, so all doors will be closed to me. However, I believe the culprit definitely isn't one of the 18. There's no way any of those 18 could commit such brutal murders. I'll say it again. Repeat it! On this island, there are only 18 people. I refuse. I won't say why. Phew. I'd avoided what would have been the worst dread for me. If she'd repeated that, I'd be faced with those two worst choices of accepting the witch or suspecting one of the 18, like last time all over again. But Beato hadn't proclaimed my ultimate and greatest weakness in red. She refused to repeat it even though there was no reason for her not to strike, even though it was a weakness she should have been drooling at. So, just bear in mind, she refused to say this in red. On this island, there are only 18 people. That'll be important. She hadn't sliced me up with red by using that move, which should have been good as forking a rook and the king. This is a big sign of my advantage. That's right. The culprit isn't one of the 18. I won't suspect anyone. And since the culprit isn't a witch either, it means a 19th person exists on this island. And that's you. A person who, as grandfather's mistress of 30 years, has been secretly living in a hidden mansion in the forest for a long, long time. The human Beatrice. That's right. You aren't a witch or anything like it. You're just a human who's been living on this island and hiding for several decades. Did you just call me, the endless witch who has lived for over 1,000 years, a human? For a while, Beatrice continued to laugh unpleasantly and gloatingly, or maybe spitefully. Are you ready? I'll keep going. Again, repeat it. There are 19 people or more on this island. Beatrice fell silent once again. She'd probably remain extremely cautious as long as confirming the number of humans on this island might give her some large disadvantage. Depending on the situation, the red has already become a foothold for my counterattacks. Now that we know this, it makes the red very risky for the witch. But if she couldn't repeat this, her Hempel's raven wouldn't be effective. To break my devil's proof, she would need to settle the existence and number of people outside the 18 in red. That's right. She couldn't break the existence of a 19th person unless she used red. I've closed Beato in, giving her no choice but to speak in red. There really was a way to fight in this witch's game. It's okay to refuse. If you can't say it in red, that means there's a total of 18 plus X people on this island. That X is a pretty massive piece to lose on your first move, right? After all, from now on, all of the tricks that were impossible for the 18 can be explained with a human X who isn't in that group. This huge piece can break open all the rooms you said were closed because everyone had an alibi. It was just like how a chess bishop can cut a thin line through enemy forces as long as there's a slight gap. could only be effectively used on squares of the same color, but it was very good at controlling territory on the board. It looked like Beato also noticed her current plight. She couldn't just let such an important piece go, especially this close to the beginning of the game. If she pulled out her red treasured sword, it wouldn't be that difficult to save herself from this. But Beato was completely aware that I was expecting it. She was afraid that a careless red truth might end up strangling her own neck. Because, in the first place, a witch is something that ought to be denied in red. Believe. Don't doubt. Witches don't exist. Something that couldn't exist in this world. There can only exist in the valleys between... They can only exist in the valleys between truths. Gosh, I can use words. They have a fragile existence curled up in these cracks, frantically trying to protect themselves from the brutal winds of truth. And they can only barely exist like a mirage by surviving on falsehood and illusions. In other words, the red, which only witches can use, is the reality that might easily deny their very being. The more they brandish their red words, the more they begin to lose, bit by bit, that crack in truth inside which they can endure. And that's why they don't want to use red words and carelessly lose that crack in truth, which is based on fuzzy information. Or illusions, in other words. That's because they understand that they're gradually being cornered. Of course, that bastard will never admit it. Because if she did, it'd be the same as admitting that she can't... It'd be the same as admitting that she's something that can't exist in this world, like an imaginary number. Don't be afraid. Stay strong. I know that she's the one who's really been pierced to the bone. After all, her red treasured sword can't be used without a lot of preparation. What's wrong? I'll say it again. Repeat it. There were at least 19 people on this island. I refuse. At the end of Beato's whirring, she took a single deep breath and quietly announced her refusal. I thought she'd use it. But Beato refused to speak in red, even though it would cost her victory in the opening part of the game. You refused? Which means that from now on, I can create as many fictional character X's outside the 18 as I want? Do as you wish. I refuse to repeat what you have told me. Isn't that enough for now? The reason for my refusal is... No, I won't tell you yet. Anyway, you'll know soon enough. Still acting tough, I see. Choosing not to use the red is another way of using it. You called it in my red treasured sword. A pleasant metaphor. I will use it too. A treasured sword is at its best when it's sheathed. In fact, there are times when it can still even more fear because it is sheathed. That's right. As I fight, I always have to keep in mind whether you might spin everything around with those red words. That's some pretty serious pressure. And there are also times when you make things pretty tough by refusing to repeat after me. Those times I can't tell if you can't repeat because my guess was right, or if you're just misleading me and letting me flounder about. If you think about it that way, yeah, it's a sheathed, treasured sword. So what? If I'm going to push you off a cliff anyway, best to let you climb a bit higher first. We've still barely begun. Much is left to come. I'll resign from this challenge. Go and get drunk on your faint victory for now. But only for now. Practically speaking, the early part of the game ended with her being a sore loser. Even so, I couldn't relax my guard at all. That tension didn't fade off one bit until I was greeted by the sound of Ronove's applause.
Spectacular battle, Osama. Perhaps you have started this game with an advantageous development.
Who knows? I still don't know whether I've taken a piece by my move or whether she guided me into taking it. After all, knowing you probably know I'm being led into a trap, and that clapping is just you mocking me openly, right?
How could you think that? I'm innocently celebrating your ability, which has enabled you to take one shot at Milady, even though it is only the first round. In any event, Milady is a person who is quick to become arrogant. I believe that a little encouragement such as this can be good medicine every once in a while.
This butler of yours sure has a vicious tongue. He does, doesn't he? Sometimes he ticks me off as well.
My, how incredibly rude of me. Well then, milady, Battler-sama, how would you like some more black tea? The game has still barely begun. Please allow me to prepare all the tea and snacks needed to adorn this game. I ask that you continue your game without any reservations.
I will. Let's move forward. Now is when it really starts. Very well. Let us advance the clock. Ronove, black tea, please.
Certainly. How about a cookie?
I don't need one. Give it to Beelzebub to keep her happy. Remain silent for now. While listening to the sound of the demon butler pouring tea, the witch closed her eyes slightly and fell silent. For some time she was deeply lost in thought, but eventually a roguish glint came into her eyes. Very well. Why don't I inform you now as to why I refused to speak in red during that first move? What? Bring it on. Show me what you got. Yes, that piece really was big enough that I'd hate to lose it. It may be hasty, but allow me to make my move. I won't use the red, but from here on Rosa will explain on my behalf. Listen. Of course I think the same way. Rosa does too, right? Rosa? Sorry. Me too. I think that too.
What's wrong, Rosa-san? You've been really quiet for a while now. Are you feeling sick?
From the beginning, Rosa had never been one to cut in on the siblings' fights, but even so, she seemed unmotivated, and had said almost nothing during this night's conference. The whole time she had hung her head and appeared to be thinking of something else. You've been in a daze for quite a while now. Do you think you can protect the inheritance like that? You're also the mother of your child, so get a stronger hold on yourself. I'm sorry.
Did you wake up really early in the morning? If you feel sick, you shouldn't overdo it.
The beds in our guest room have been prepared. How about taking a rest? I will guide you. No, I'm fine. Thank you. What is it? Is there something you're worrying about? No, not really. Is that so? It feels like your mind has been elsewhere this whole time. I wonder if that has anything to do with what we've been talking about. At those words, everyone stared at Rosa together. As if in response, Rosa's shoulders quivered. Apparently, Kyrie's guess hadn't been wrong. Rosa couldn't deny it either. No, She swallowed whatever it was she had been trying to say and went silent again. Of course, the other siblings also began to realize that something about her appearance was different from usual. What is it? You've been weird for a while. Did you think of something? We all just swore to remain united, didn't we? Don't hold back worrying by yourself. We said we'd talk.
Rosa, tell us.
The men pressed her one after the other, and Rosa confessed resignedly and nervously. That the atmosphere made it seem as though she was confessing to some modest prank, which had inadvertently brought about a serious situation. No, this mistress of grandfather's, this Beatrice, I was wondering if she's still alive. Huh? Isn't it obvious that she's alive? After all, she was able to send that letter to us. Whether she's in good health or not is a different story, though. The woman in that portrait must be getting up there in age by now. I'd say she's healthy. People who are crafty when it comes to money stay healthy no matter how old they get. Her evil plan might even be the best rejuvenating agent.
She shouldn't be alive. Huh? What did you just say? Beatrice is dead. I killed her.
What? What did you just say? What do you mean, Rosa?
But it wasn't really me who killed her. Though I did bring her to a place like that. No, I did kill her after all. I tried to make myself believe it was a dream. But it really wasn't a dream, was it? Which makes this a letter from Beatrice's ghost.
It was so sudden that everyone was lost for words. Rosa kept on talking, unable to stop, holding her head as her hair flew all about.
Calm yourself, Rosa-san.
I have absolutely no clue what's going on. Already dead? What do you mean?
I think it means two things. First, its literal meaning. And second, it backs up our earlier guess.
Which means Rosa has met with Beatrice, right?
I've never heard Rosa mention anything like this. Rosa, when was it? When could you possibly have met Beatrice? Long ago. Long ago. We just moved over to the island and I was still young. It wasn't my fault. It's not like I killed her.
Calm down. Nobody's blaming you for anything, right? First, drink some water. Okay. Nazi-san, the pitcher, please.
Yes. Here you go, Rosa-san. Please, calm yourself.
Until Rosa was able to calm her ragged breathing, no one was able to speak a word. Well, that's a cliffhanger for you, huh?
Well. So next week, you will get to hear her explain how she apparently killed Beatrice. And I got my work cut out for me next week because Kinzo's apparently in that one. So, all right. So, yeah, next Wednesday I will be back with more of this. Let's see. Sunday I will be streaming more Horizon Forbidden West. Let me see who is online right now. Oh, we've got El Capo live with Persona 4 Golden. Definitely going to be rating that. All right. So, guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I appreciate you all being here. Hope to see you guys on Sunday. Let us begin the raid shortly. This is Dr. Novelle signing out. You have a good one. Raiding now.